Dear respected Thai, dear noble community, this morning we'll be practicing sitting meditation before we start our Sunday service. So please find yourself in a comfortable posture. Make sure your back is upright, your shoulders relax. Your hands can be placed on your lap or on your knees. You would like to close your eyes. Keep a light smile on your face and relax your whole body. Sau khi chúng ta chỉnh tư thế xong, bây giờ chúng ta chú tâm về hơi thở. Để ý những hơi thở ra vào. Khi mình thở vào, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở vào. Khi mình thở ra, mình nhận biết đây là hơi thở ra. Vào, ra. Mình thở tự nhiên và mình không cần dồn ép hơi thở. So once you establish your posture, bring all your attention to your breathing. Become aware of your in-breath as you breathe in, and become aware of your out-breath as you breathe out. In, out. There's no need to control or force our breathing. Breathe naturally. Mình sẽ bắt đầu với ngồi thiền bằng 3 tiếng chuông. We'll begin the session of 3 sounds of the bell. Thở vào, tôi biết tôi đang thở vào. Thở ra, tôi biết tôi đang thở ra. Vào, ra. Breathing in, I'm aware that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware that I'm breathing out. In, out. cười. Breathing in, my mind is calm. Breathing out, I smile. Calm, smiling. Thở vào, an trú trong hiện tại. Thở ra, giây phút đẹp tuyệt vời. Hiện tại, tuyệt vời. Dwelling in the present moment, I breathe in. Breathing out, I know that this is a wonderful moment. Present moment, wonderful moment. Please take some time to release and massage your legs. Và xin nhắc nhở đại chúng, vì nào có cell phone, xin nhớ tắt cell phone hoặc chuyển qua chế độ rung để mình giữ buổi lễ thanh tịnh và trang nghiêm. A reminder for those who have a cell phone, please make sure you have turned off your cell phone or you switched it to vibrate mode so that we keep the atmosphere of the ceremony serene. Thank you.
Please turn to page 0. Trầm hướng đông, xóm nhà mười phương, nguyện nguyện kén đấng niệm từ vô lượng, cầu cầu xin chứng thông thành chúng con. Vầng vầng khói kén nay lại cúng dường, đàn niệm mau đã lan truyền nơi cùng nơi, nhờ chân lý chúng sanh đều thoát luân hồi, đầm quý kính huy với đại xem, văn hóa tâm từ kia màu thắm tươi cành, đại quang minh sáng huy hoàng chánh niệm, ở mười phương điều ngự hào quang an lành, niên đạo yên chuyên quần sanh, phần đạo đăng cùng nhau tu tinh tấn mau viễn thành. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Xin cho khói trầm thơm kén thành mây năm sắc dâng lên khắp mười phương, cúng dường vô lượng bùn vô lượng chư Bồ Tát cùng các thánh hiền tăng, nơi pháp giới dung thông kết đài sen rừng rỡ, nguyện làm kẻ đồng hành trên con đường giác ngộ, xin mọi loài chúng sanh từ bỏ cõi làng quen theo đường giới định tuệ, quay về trong tỉnh thức. Chúng con kính dâng hương lên bùn và chư vị Bồ Tát. Hôm nay đệ tử chúng con một lòng chí thành, đến trước tam bảo chí thành đảnh hương cúng dường, ba nội vô thường trì tụng kinh xưng tán hồng danh hồng công, cầu cho thế giới hòa bình chúng sanh an lạc. Lại trong pháp duyên này chúng con hôm nay cầu siêu cho các vị chư hương linh Kelsey Bennett, Phạm Từ Hải, Nguyễn Minh Hoa, pháp danh Bửu Vinh, Bùi Văn Nhân, pháp danh Hoàng Nghiêm, Trần Vinh, pháp danh Thanh Biểu, Võ Minh Sơn, pháp danh Từ Thông, Phan Thị Bồi, pháp danh Đức Thư, Nỗ Thị Huệ, pháp danh Diệu Định, Huyện Thị Bành Cúc, pháp danh Diệu Thanh, Viện Thị Sắc, Vũ Thị Mỹ, pháp danh Nhật Hoàng, Huyện Phúc Thái, pháp danh Nhật Bình, Dương Minh Hoa, pháp danh Tâm Quán Duyên, Trần Thị Đồ, pháp danh Diệu Hiền, Đặng Thị Brian, pháp danh Minh Thành, Nguyễn Thị Tiết, pháp danh Diệu Lạc, Ngàn Thọ Can, Nguyễn Thị Tốt, pháp danh Diệu Thành, Nguyễn Văn Thân, bé Văn Thảo, bé Văn Lan, bé Phạm Phú Thành, Trần Văn Đồ, Phạm Thị Lan, Trần Minh Tuấn, pháp danh Minh Lạc, Phạm Thị Tình, Trần Văn Lai, pháp danh Thanh Tịnh, bé Thị Thành, pháp danh Tịnh Đức, Huỳnh Thị Nam, pháp danh Diệu Lạc, Siêu Kazwich, pháp danh Đức Nhẫn, Lâm Lệ Liên. Tất cả chư hương linh nương nhờ Tam Bảo, lần đồng đường về đây nghe kinh siêu sanh tịnh độ. Lại quỳ cầu an cho chư Phật tử, nộ vinh nguyện lê nập hiếu nguyện thị xương, pháp danh Huệ Duyệt, Trần Nằm Bình Lễ Văn Sa, pháp danh Minh Trí Duy Thông Minh, Huỳnh Thị Xuân Mai, Lưu Thị Mỹ, Trư Đi Linh Sa, pháp danh Từ Đàn, Vũ Na Nguyện Thị Hòa, pháp danh Diệu Lan, Nguyện Thanh Văn Đoàn Tấn Kiệt, pháp danh Huệ Phước, Lâm Di Thái Rê Minh, Trần Lý Văn, pháp danh Trơn Nhã, Đàm Thị Bền, pháp danh Diệu Minh, Hồ Thị Phùng, pháp danh Từ Truyền, Sư Sanh Hy, Nguyện Phú Đồng, Trần Phẩm Thái, Anthony, pháp danh Thiện Phước, Trần Kiến Tinh, Huỳnh Thị Tuyết Huệ, pháp danh Diệu Tú, Trần Nhân Phú, pháp danh Minh Hoàng, Hoàng Thị Hương Giang, Trần Hoàng Nhật Nhi, Trần Hoàng Nhật Khang, Vượng Hải Sinh, Huỳnh Thị Hòa, pháp danh Từ An Thuận, Cao Nhung, Nguyễn Thị Kim Phượng, pháp danh Từ Hòa, Lê Thị Cày, Tô Phung Hiệp, Huỳnh Vị Bảo, pháp danh Thanh Pháp, Nguyễn Thị Kim Phùng, pháp danh Từ Hòa, Nguyễn Thị Xuân, pháp danh Diệu Nhiên, Nô Thị Thành, Nguyễn Văn Phước, Quang Mộc Vũ, Anne Elizabeth Peterson, Marie Petit. Nguyện chư Phật tử thân tâm an tịnh, bình khổ tiêu trừ, thường đường an lành xa lìa khổ ách, nhượng mong ngoại đức từ bi quán giáng đạo tràng chứng minh gia hộ. Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát, Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát, Nam mô chứng minh sư Bồ Tát Ma Tát. Sen quý nợ đà giác nộ, hào quang chiếu rạng mười phương, trí tuệ vừa thầm pháp giới, từ bi thống nhuận non xâm, vừa thấy dung nhan điều nữ trong nhà phiền não sành không, hướng về tán dương công đức tinh chuyên đạo niệm vun trầm. Nhân tâm kính lệ bồn pháp tăng thường trụ trong mười phương. Nhân tâm kính lệ đức bổn sư Bổn Thánh Ca Mâu Ni. Nhân tâm kính lệ liệt vị tổ sư qua các thời đại, từ Tây Trung cho đến Việt Nam. Kính mời đại chúng mở trang số 4. Please turn to page 4. Không chí cùng không
Kính thưa đại chúng, theo lời Đức Phật dạy là người Phật tử khi đã phát tâm quy y Tam Bảo và thọ trì giới Pháp thì mỗi tháng ít nhất một lần phải ôn tụng giới luật. Chính vì thế mà hôm nay tất cả chúng ta văn tập về đây, trước là sám hối cho ba nghiệp được thanh tịnh, sau là nhất tâm ôn tụng lại quy giới. Trước hết chúng ta ôn lại ba sự quay về nương tựa. Quy y Tam Bảo là quay về nương tựa nơi Phật, nơi Pháp và nơi Tăng. Phật, Pháp, Tăng là ba viên ngọc quý. Quay về nương tựa nơi Phật là quay về nương tựa nơi bậc tỉnh thức có khả năng đưa đường chỉ lối cho chúng ta trong cuộc đời. Quay về nương tựa Pháp là quay về nương tựa nơi lời dạy của Đức Phật, nghĩa là con đường của trí tuệ và từ bi. Quay về nương tựa Tăng là quay về nương tựa nơi đoàn thể của những người đang thực tập theo con đường của từ bi, trí tuệ và sống trong tỉnh thức. Phật, Pháp và Tăng có mặt trong 10 phương thế giới mà cũng có mặt trong mọi người và mọi loài. Quay về nương tựa nơi Phật, Pháp và Tăng cũng có nghĩa là tin tưởng ở khả năng giác ngộ tự tánh, ở khả năng khai mở và phát triển hiểu biết và thương yêu của nơi bản thân mình, và khả năng thực tập hành đạo của cá nhân và đoàn thể mình. Nghe chuông, xin đại chúng chắp tay hướng về Tam Bảo và cùng nhau ôn đọc lại ba sự quay về và nương tựa.
Today, the community has gathered to recite the 3 refuges and the 5 mindfulness trainings. The 5 mindfulness trainings represent the Buddha's vision for a global spirituality and ethic. They are a concrete expression of the Buddha's teachings on the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of right understanding and true love, leading to healing, transformation, and happiness for ourselves and for the world. To practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of into being, a right view, which can remove all discrimination, intolerance, anger, fear, and despair. If we live according to the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are already on the path of a bodhisattva. Knowing we are on that path, we are not lost in confusion about our life, in the present, or in the fears about the future. After hearing the sound of the bell, please repeat after me.
Xin đại chúng chắp tay và lặp lại. Con về nương tựa Phật.
Con về nương tựa Phật.
Người đưa đường.
Người đưa đường.
Chỉ lối cho con trong cuộc đời.
Chỉ lối cho con trong cuộc đời. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
The one who shows me the way in this life.
The one who showed me in this life. Con về nương tựa Pháp.
Con về nương tựa Pháp.
Con đường của tình thương.
Con đường của tình thương.
Và sự hiểu biết.
Và sự hiểu biết. I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
The way of understanding and love.
The way of understanding and love. Con về nương tựa Tăng.
Con về nương tựa Tăng.
Đoàn thể của những người.
Đoàn thể của những người.
Nguyện sống cuộc đời tỉnh thức.
Nguyện sống cuộc đời tỉnh thức. I take refuge in the Sangha. The community that lives in harmony and awareness.
Kính thưa đại chúng ta vừa ôn xong ba sự quay về và nương tựa. Bây giờ chúng ta ôn lại 5 giới quý báu. 5 giới là nền tảng cho một cuộc sống có hạnh phúc và có chí nguyện vị tha, có khả năng bảo vệ sự sống và làm đẹp cho cuộc đời. Năm giới là những nguyên tắc hướng dẫn chúng ta về hướng an lạc, giải thoát và giác ngộ. Năm giới là nền tảng của hạnh phúc cá nhân, hạnh phúc của gia đình và của xã hội. Học hỏi và thực hành theo năm giới, ta sẽ đi đúng con đường chánh pháp. Ta sẽ tránh được lỗi lầm, đau khổ, sợ hãi và thất vọng. Ta sẽ xây dựng an lạc hạnh phúc cho ta, cho gia đình ta và đóng góp vào phẩm chất an lạc và hòa bình của xã hội. Đây là giới tướng của năm giới. Xin đại chúng lắng nghe từng giới một với tâm hồn thanh tịnh, lấy giới lực làm tấm gương trong vắt để soi chiếu nội tâm mình. Đây là giới thứ nhất, nuôi dưỡng lòng thương không sát hại các loài sinh vật. Ý thức không sát hại sinh vật là bảo vệ sự sống. Ý thức được khổ đau do sự sát hại gây ra. Con xin học theo hạnh đại bi để bảo vệ sự sống của mọi người và muôn loài. Con nguyện không giết hại sanh mạng, không tán thành sự giết chóc và không khuyến bảo người khác giết hại, dù là trong tâm tưởng hay trong cách sống hàng ngày của con. Đó là giới thứ nhất của năm giới.
The first mindfulness training, reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivate the insight of interbeing and compassion, and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world. This is the first of the 5 mindfulness trainings.
Đây là giới thứ hai, nuôi dưỡng lòng từ bi, không gian tham, trộm cắp. Ý thức được những khổ đau do lường gạt, trộm cướp và bất công xã hội gây ra. Con xin học theo hạnh đại từ, đem niềm vui sống và an lạc cho mọi người và mọi loài, để chia sẻ thì giờ, năng lực và tài vật của con với những người đang thật sự thiếu thốn. Con nguyện không lấy làm tư hữu bất cứ một của cải nào không phải do mình tạo ra hoặc không do người khác biếu tặng. Con nguyện tôn trọng quyền tư hữu của kẻ khác, nhưng cũng nguyện khuyên bảo kẻ khác không tích trữ và làm giàu trên sự đau khổ của con người và của muôn loài. Đó là giới thứ hai của năm giới.
The second mindfulness training, true happiness. Aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression, I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others, and I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering, that true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on earth and stop contributing to climate change. This is the second of the 5 mindfulness trainings.
Đây là giới thứ ba của năm giới, nuôi dưỡng mái ấm gia đình, không làm việc tà hạnh. Ý thức được những khổ đau do tà hạnh gây ra, con xin học theo tinh thần trách nhiệm để giúp bảo vệ tiết hạnh và sự an toàn của mọi người và mọi gia đình trong xã hội. Con nguyện không làm việc dục nhiễm với những người không phải là vợ hay chồng của con. Con ý thức được rằng những hành động bất chánh sẽ gây ra những đau khổ cho kẻ khác và cho chính con. Con biết muốn bảo vệ hạnh phúc của mình và của kẻ khác thì phải biết tôn trọng những cam kết của mình và của kẻ khác. Con sẽ cố gắng tìm mọi cách để có thể bảo vệ và hướng dẫn trẻ em, không cho nạn tà dâm tiếp tục gây nên sự đổ vỡ của các gia đình và của đời sống lứa đôi. Đó là giới thứ 3 của 5 giới.
The third mindfulness training, true love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love, and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the 4 basic elements of true love, for my greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. This is the third of the 5 mindfulness trainings.
Đây là giới thứ 4, nuôi dưỡng sự hiểu biết và tập nói lời ái ngữ và lắng nghe. Ý thức được những khổ đau do lời nói thiếu chánh niệm gây ra, con xin học theo hành ái ngữ và lắng nghe để dâng tặng niềm vui cho người và làm vơi bớt khổ đau cho người. Biết rằng lời nói có thể đem lại hạnh phúc hoặc khổ đau cho người, nên con nguyện chỉ nói những lời có thể gây nên niềm tự tin, an vui và hy vọng. Những lời chân thực có giá trị xây dựng sự hiểu biết và hòa giải. Con nguyện không nói dối những điều sai với sự thật, không nói những lời gây chia rẽ và căm thù. Con nguyện không loan truyền những tin mà con không biết chắc là có thật, không phê bình và lên án những điều con không biết rõ. Con nguyện không nói những điều có thể tạo nên sự bất hòa trong gia đình và đoàn thể, những điều có thể làm tan vỡ gia đình và đoàn thể. Đó là giới thứ 4 của 5 giới.
The 4th mindfulness training, loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in the other person. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. This is the 4th of the 5 mindfulness trainings.
Đây là giới thứ 5, nuôi dưỡng bản thân và tổ tiên không tàn hại thân thể bằng độc tố. Ý thức được những khổ đau do sự sử dụng ma túy và độc tố gây ra, con xin học cách chuyển hóa thân tâm, xây dựng sức khỏe và tâm hồn bằng cách thực tập chánh niệm trong việc ăn uống và tiêu thụ. Con nguyện chỉ tiêu thụ những gì có thể đem lại an lạc cho thân tâm con, cho thân tâm gia đình và xã hội. Con nguyện không uống rượu và sử dụng các chất ma túy. Con biết rằng tàn hại thân thể bằng rượu và các độc tố là tội bất kính, bất hiếu đối với tổ tiên dòng họ, và cũng là sự phản bội các thế hệ con cháu trong tương lai. Con nguyện chuyển hóa bạo động, căm thù, sợ hãi và buồn giận bằng cách thực tập phép kiêng cữ cho con và cho xã hội. Con biết phép kiêng khiêm này rất thiết yếu để chuyển hóa tự thân và cộng đồng xã hội. Đó là giới thứ 5 của 5 giới.
The fifth mindfulness training, nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble, to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contains toxins such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment, to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate into being and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth. This is the 5th of the 5 mindfulness trainings.
Kính thưa đại chúng ta vừa nghe tuyên đọc xong 5 giới quý báu, nền tảng của hạnh phúc gia đình và chất liệu của chí nguyện lợi tha. Phật dạy phải ôn tụng thường xuyên giới tướng mỗi tháng ít nhất 1 lần để sự học hỏi và hành trì 5 giới càng ngày càng sâu sắc và lớn rộng.
Brothers and sisters, we have recited the 5 mindfulness trainings, the foundation of happiness for the individual, the family, and society. We should recite them regularly so that our study and practice of the mindfulness trainings can deepen day by day.
Kính mời đại chúng mở kinh trang số 20.
Please turn to page 20. Đệ tử chúng có từ vô thầy dạy bao nghìn chương thời lầm mê vào sinh ra tự biết bao lần đây đã chưa đại vô thường giác
nuôi chứng
bên cuối sẽ đỡ từ bi nhiễm thọ phụng hiến cam lầu vị pháp lượng như thái xin mọi loài đạt nguyện về nương bóng đại từ nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường nam mô Đức Bồ Tát Phật cúng dường bao nhiêu lầm lỗi cùng do tâm ta thể còn đau
dấu lỗi lầm mà sám hối xong rồi lòng nhẹ nhõm ngàn xưa mấy bạc vẫn thấm dòng nam mô Đức Bồ Tát cầu sám hối
nam mô Đức Bồ Tát cầu sám nam mô Đức Bồ Tát cầu sám
hối.
nguyện ngài an lành đem an lành
Ngày đêm sau thời điều an lành trong mỗi giây mọi phút cầu ơn Tam Bảo luôn che chở nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu tai gian kia
tường nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu tai giác kiết tường
nam mô Đức Bồ Tát tiêu tai gian kia tường
có về đưa tư bồ mà
người đưa đường chỉ lối cho con trong cuộc đời con về nương tựa pháp con đường của tình thương và sự hiểu biết
có
về nương tựa tâm đoàn thể của những người nguyện sống cuộc đời
tham tri tộc tham diệu
tạo công đức vô biên
đệ tử sẽ hồi hướng
cho chúng sanh
mọi
miền pháp môn xin nguyện học ơn nghĩa xin nguyện đền
phiền não
xin nguyện đoàn quả cùng xin chân nương.
Kính mời đại chúng cùng xả chân. Please release your legs. In gratitude to our parents that gives us life and our country that keeps us safe, we bow deeply to the three jewels in the 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ cha mẹ sanh thành quân dân bảo hộ, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 10 phương. gratitude to our teachers and friends that support us on the path, we bow deeply to 3 jewels in 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ sư trưởng giáo huấn liên vị tinh thí đặng cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 10 phương. In gratitude to all the plants, animals, and mineral world, we bow deeply to 3 jewels in the 10 directions. Đệ tử chúng con nhớ mọi loài chúng sanh cây cỏ đắng đam, cúi đầu kính lễ tam bảo thường trụ trong 10 phương. Di Đà Phật, kính mời quý Phật tử có thể lên những hàng đầu để cho những vị ở đằng sau có chỗ. Dạ, quý Phật tử có thể lên hàng đầu. Dạ. Dạ, kính mời quý Phật tử cùng an toàn.
Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Con kính bạch trên thầy, trong quý thầy, quý sư cô cùng toàn thể đại chúng. Trước khi con xin phép được chia sẻ bằng tiếng Anh cho các bạn trẻ, thì con kính mời đại chúng ta cùng chắp tay, búp sen và niệm danh hiệu Đức Bổn Sư 3 lần. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Dear respected teacher, dear thầy, dear Sangha, dear community, today is Sunday, June 18th, the year 2023. How are you all doing this morning? It's a bit rainy outside and a bit gloomy, but we are here in this meditation hall together where there is a lot of light, a lot of bond bringing us together, coming here on Sunday in order to come back to our roots, to our ancestors, to our parents, to think of our loved ones, to review the teachings of the Buddha, and in all, our ultimate goal is to find a way to make ourselves more happy, to live a life that is more happy, and help our loved ones live a happy life as well. And this is the teachings of the Buddha, showing us a way to transform our difficulties and suffering, and make our lives more happy, make our lives more meaningful, showing us to live in such a way that is beneficial for ourselves and beneficial for our family, and bringing happiness to ourselves, our family, and society. As you've seen earlier when we recited the 5 mindfulness trainings, the 5 codes of conduct that were taught by the Buddha for the lay community in order to maintain happiness for ourselves, maintain happiness for our family, and maintain happiness for society. In each and everything that we do, when we practice the trainings, when we come to the teachings and we learn the teachings, we apply the teachings to ourselves, then we are protecting ourselves. But once we have been protected, we are also protecting others as well, and protecting society as well. The precept of not taking life, the precept of not stealing, the precept of not cheating, the precept of not lying, the precept of not intoxicating our own bodies is for the benefit of ourselves, but also the benefit of our family. And the Buddha is just teaching us a way to live happily. In a family where there's a lot of trust, in a family where there is a lot of clarity, there will be more chances for us to understand each other better. There will be more chances for us to live more happily. The other day, I was going to pray for a family with a deceased member, and on the way, we were on the car that was taking us to the funeral home, and one of the lay brothers behind me, he handed me my seatbelt. It's not very common for me to put my seatbelt on, especially in the back, because it was not so normal for me to put my seatbelt on. That's when he handed me the seatbelt. I felt a bit, when I put the seatbelt on, I felt a bit restricted. But I thought to myself, the seatbelt is like the 5 mindfulness trainings. The seatbelt is like the precepts. When you wear a seatbelt, you protect yourself. First of all, if you do get in an accident, there is a less likely chance that you will go flying out the window. But sometimes, because we feel that it's restricting, we don't put the seatbelt on, but it's very beneficial for us to put the seatbelt on, and it could save our lives. And the trainings are more or less the same. The 5 mindfulness trainings presented by the Buddha is a way to live our lives in such a way where we can protect ourselves. But when we protect ourselves by not lying, by not stealing, by not killing, by not intoxicating our bodies, we also protect our family as well. We protect our family from being broken, from gambling. We protect our family from being... there's a lot of suffering in society now, even when people have a lot of maybe difficulties in their lives and they resort to consuming alcoholic beverages, or to just living in such a way where they just allow their lives to go pass by, and they indulge in those toxins as a way to comfort themselves, to make themselves feel better. So why not use the teachings of the Buddha, or use the Dharma, the way of wisdom, the way of understanding and love, in order to consume the Dharma, instead of consuming something that will only last us a couple hours and then we end up feeling very, very terrible afterwards. So the precepts, the mindfulness trainings, are kind of like a seatbelt. This is an insight that I had the other day. When you practice safe driving on the road, it's not only for yourself, but it's also for other people around you. I remember when my teacher went to Bhutan. Bhutan is deemed the happiest country in the world. And when he went there were no street lights, no stoplights, no stop signs, but there was a big sign every few kilometers you drove, and on the sign it said, we know, everyone understands that you need to get home quickly, but please don't forget that other people need to get home to their families as well. So no wonder why Bhutan is the happiest country in the world. When the signs like that are being put up, and people think more about, if they understand that they want to get home to their family safely, then they also have to understand they have to drive safe, because there are other people out there who wish to get home to their family as well. So happiness can come from practicing the precepts. So today we will continue to study together the discourse on happiness, or the Mangala Sutta, the Mahamangala Sutta. This discourse was taught by the Buddha on one occasion late at night when it was when the Buddha delivered this teaching. And I would just like to read a few of the verses that we have went through from the weeks before, so that we can have a recap of what we went through. The word Mangala, the word Mahamangala, means a great omen, or an auspicious omen, or a blessing, or in other words, a very great happiness. Mahamangala. I heard these words of the Buddha one time when the Lord was living in the vicinity of Savatthi at Anathapindika Monastery in the Jeta Grove. Late at night, a deva appeared whose light and beauty made the whole Jeta Grove shine radiantly. After paying respects to the Buddha, the deva asked him a question in the form of a verse. Many gods and men are eager to know what are the greatest blessings which bring about a peaceful and happy life. Please, Tathagata, please, Lord Buddha, will you teach us? This was the Buddha's answer. Not to be associated with the foolish ones, to live in the company of wise people, honoring those who are worth honoring. This is the greatest happiness. To live in a good environment, to have planted good seeds, and to realize that you are on the right path. This is the greatest happiness. To have a chance to learn and grow, to be skillful in your profession or craft, practicing the precepts and loving speech, this is the greatest happiness. To be able to support and serve your parents, to cherish your own family, and to have vocation that brings you joy, this is the greatest happiness. So these are things that we can identify in our lives right away. On the occasion of Father's Day, I would also like to later mention some stories that I have, some memories that I have with my father. But in this particular verse, last time we spoke about being able to serve and support your parents. This is a great happiness, a great joy. Every time Thai conducts his funeral service, and if it's for grandparents, then Thai will speak to the grandchildren. Thai will say, just as your grandparents have grown old and now they have passed away, don't forget that your parents are also growing old as well. So do your best to serve, do your best to take care of your parents, to live with them meaningfully. The message is to live with them meaningfully and happily before one day they will have to go as well. And perhaps we have lost our mother, and perhaps we have lost our father. But if we have lost our mother, and all we have left is our father, more even so the reason that we should feel fortunate that we still have one of our two parents. So today we will be moving on. So we talked about parents last time. This time we will talk about to provide for one's wife and children, to support one's family. So on the theme of Father's Day, in order to be a good father, of course you have to be a good husband, or you have to be able to understand the technique of the art of love, the art of taking care of your spouse, the art of building a family, the art of finding a way to teach your children. So it all ties in with being able to take care of yourself. All of the change that comes outside comes and begins from ourselves, right? So later on we'll see that the Buddha teaches there are a couple of ways that couples they will match with each other, because within themselves they already have these particular qualities. And when they find another person that has the same particular qualities, and when they come together, it will bring to them a lot of joy and a lot of happiness in a relationship. In life, we are there for each other. We support each other by a few ways. By emotional support means being present for that person, being there for that person. Sometimes our loved ones don't need anything more than just for us to be there with them, to remember them. If we're going to school somewhere far away, our father or our mother doesn't need a lot. All they need for us is to, for example, do good in school, and sometimes give them a call to check up on how they're doing. Just a very small and simple gesture like that. When you know that someone is remembering you, someone cares about you, that is already a way of supporting each other. Being present for each other, learning to speak lovingly, and learning how to listen deeply, learning how to understand each other's deepest wishes. I'm not sure if we've ever asked our father. I know I haven't asked my father yet, but ever asked our father, Dad, what is your deepest wish? I think one thing that I regretted the most after my grandparents passed away was not being able to ask my grandparents more about their lives, not being able to ask them more about their difficulty, their struggles, their deepest wishes, and just to talk about them in general. It was always them taking care of me. So if we still have the chance to, if we still have our parents, if we still have our grandparents, take this chance in order to find a way to understand them deeper, to know them on a more close level. And there's another kind of support, which is spiritual support. The spiritual support is very important, especially for us as Buddhist practitioners. We understand that the teachings of the Buddha is a teacher, and he's not a god. So the Buddha is a teacher who experienced life just as we do. And through the Buddha's experiences of the happiness and the suffering in life, or through the Buddha's wisdom that he gained from that experience, he's able to help us and to navigate the way in order to show us how we can live to be more happy, how we can make our lives more meaningful. And understanding the Dharma. And the Dharma can be defined as the way of understanding and love. In any relationship, in any part of life, when it comes to us and other people, we need a lot of these two elements, understanding and love. And these two elements are interconnected to each other. Without understanding, there's no true love. And without true love, we wouldn't want to understand each other. So you see in the monastery, you see the big drum and the big bell at the back. That symbolizes these two qualities of understanding and love. For example, we've never understood, maybe when for some of the children, the young monks in the monastery yesterday, I spoke to them. They were having some difficulties with amongst themselves because one small monk was trying to ask his elder brother to stop doing something, but his elder brother wouldn't stop doing it. And it must have been maybe the 20th time or the 30th time, and he was very, very upset that his elder brother didn't do, what everyone was trying to ask him to do, even though it was completely right in his eyes. And I told him, I pulled the young monk aside, the baby monk aside, and I told him, we have to be able to put ourselves into the other person's shoes. So we have to understand that perhaps the other person has never really had the chance to, for example, yesterday, one of our young monks that have come here, he's a guest monk from another monastery. And we received him to come here to practice with us for 5 weeks. And in the other monastery, I've heard that there is not a lot of young monks in the monastery, just a lot of older monks and older nuns, so no one played with him, you know. And so I told the younger monk, you know, sometimes it's because we have to understand that we are very lucky that we have friends to play with. We're very, very lucky that we actually have people to hang out with, because maybe our brother didn't really get the chance to hang out with other people. And without the proper understanding of something, there is no way to, for example, if I've never played with any other children before, then I would not be familiar with how I should play with other children, for example. And as I talked to him more and more, he started to soften up a bit. And he was crying, and then he stopped crying. And I told him, from our hearts, we must always have a very great source of understanding. Open our hearts up very, very large. On the outside world, people, they might not know about the teachings. They might not know about the Dharma. But because we are here in the monastery, because we are monks, we have to be even more understanding than other people. That's why people respect us, is because we are more understanding. We can be more patient. We can be more forgiving. And after I explained that to him, he was very, very happy afterwards. So the Dharma is the path, the way to happiness, the way to transform our suffering, and the way of understanding and love. Another kind of method we can use to support our family is, of course, supporting them materialistically, physically, doing our share of work, fulfilling our responsibility in the household, and making a living to support each other. That means we split the chores in the house. I read a study online they did a study that couples that live together were more happy if they knew how to split the chores in the house. And it's just a scientific study. This is not something that I just made up. And you know, it's kind of funny sometimes to hear about relationships from a monk's point of view, or a monk is a person out of all the people to be talking to you about relationships and family and love. But although we have no experience about it, but we have understanding from it, from studying the teachings of the Buddha. Because the Buddha teaches us the way to transform suffering, the way to transform our minds. As human beings, we are all troubled. We all have this troubled with the seeds of greed, hatred, and confusion. We are troubled with our own pride. And the Buddha teaches us how to transform that, to find a way to transform all of the negative parts of our mind, to improve all the positive parts in our mind. So these seeds in our mind, greed, hatred, and ignorance, and confusion, or pride, it makes it difficult for us to be happy. It impacts not only ourselves, but it also impacts our loved ones. When we're angry, sometimes we completely forget that the person that is standing in front of us is our mother, and we shouldn't speak to our mother in such a way. We completely forget all the things that our mother has done for us, all of the beautiful and sweet things that our wonderful mother has done for us. When we are angry, we completely forget all of the good times that we had with our brother. We know there are good times and bad times, but in the moment of anger, with not being able to transform or to practice with the mind, we completely lose ourselves. And we're all victims of greed, hatred, and ignorance. And the Buddha is like a teacher who has been able to transform that. And that's why he gives us the method, and it can make us be more happy. It's like, maybe an example is like how a doctor understands the nature or cause of a particular illness, and he helps the patients to get well. Well, he doesn't necessarily have to be sick. Right? So the monks can also speak about, from a Buddhist point of view, or from the Buddhist perspective, of love, of relationships, of how to live more happy. And we don't have to necessarily be in a relationship to share those things. Because in the end, it is all about the transformation of the mind. It's all about our own practice. Or like a guard, or someone who's standing, let's say a pool guard, and somebody is swimming in the water, or even if the person is standing outside of the pool is a person who doesn't know how to swim, or has never swam his entire life. If the person who jumped into the pool is struggling, the person outside can also throw a float into the pool for the person that is drowning to hold on to. He doesn't necessarily have to know how to swim, or he doesn't necessarily have to jump into that pool himself. So I've heard this many, many times before. Unfortunately, when the monastics try to share about relationships or about love, people tend to say that, oh, what do you know about love or romance or how to live happily, how to have a happy family. We might not have experience with romantic love, but we have the experience of living together. We live together with 20, 30 people, sometimes 100 people in one community. And we have the experience of finding a way to be harmonious. If it's already too difficult to find harmony between two people, then think about how difficult it is to find harmony in between 10 people or 20 people or 100 people. And the Buddha and his Sangha was able to do that. Or finding a way to generate happiness and to walk together on the same path, towards the same direction. And isn't that what love is all about also? Walking with another person on the same path, heading towards the same direction, doing everything together. In the monastery, we are basically, one time I remember in Plum Village, when I was studying in Plum Village, we had a meeting about accepting a new person into the community. And at that time I was still quite young, so I was being a bit playful in the meeting. And I said some things that were like silly. And the brother that was hosting the meeting, he said, my younger brother, we have to be serious about this because we are taking them into our community. It's like we're marrying them. Yeah. So think about how many people we marry and how many people we live with. So we do know a little bit about how to be happy, how to be more understanding, how to be more harmonious. And moreover, our teacher, the Buddha, before he became a seeker, before he became, he renounced his royal palace. He was a prince, and the prince also had a family, and he deeply understood the art of love, because the prince lived very, very happily with his spouse, Princess Yashodhara. The prince married a very beautiful princess, beautiful and also virtuous, and her name was Yashodhara, and together they had a son. So the Buddha himself, out of all people, is also very, very, he understands how to have a happy family very deeply. If you have the chance, if you're interested in learning more about the Buddha's life, I would suggest that you read this book. It is very, very good. It's a book written by Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh about the life of the Buddha, and it is told in a very poetic and beautiful way. So, just so we can get an idea of how the Buddha lived, how the Buddha and Prince Siddhartha, which later on became the Buddha, lived together with the princess in the royal palace, and how they understood each other, how they were very, very much similar to each other. I would like to read to you some excerpts from this book. So, just for a backstory, so everyone gets the idea, the prince was predicted at birth that he was going to become a spiritual teacher, or a great teacher in a way, and either that or become a king. And so his father, the king, was very, very worried that his son would one day just leave everything and renounce the royal palace. He had no other children, so he was very, very worried, and he wanted his son to become a king. He wanted his son to become a king, not a spiritual teacher. So he tried his very, very best to give his son the best of sensual pleasures. from food, from clothing, to entertainment, everything that a royal prince should get, and even more. And Prince Siddhartha, although he understood that his father wanted him to stay and remain in the royal palace, he had a deeper motivation on the inside when he saw the sufferings and the difficulties that everyone around him, especially people that were outside of the palace, were encountering. So this is after they were married to each other. The following summer, so I will ask you just to relax. You can close your eyes and just listen to this as if it was a story. The following summer, as they were driven to their summer palace by faithful Channa, Siddhartha's boyhood attendant, Siddhartha introduced Yashodhara to places throughout the kingdom she did not yet know. They stayed several days at each location, sometimes spending the night in the homes of country folk, sharing their simple foods and sleeping upon their string-woven beds. They learned a great deal about the way of life and the customs of each place they visited. At times, they encountered terrible misery. They met families with 9 or 10 children, every child racked with disease, and no matter how hard the parents toiled day and night, they could not earn enough to support so many children. Hardship went in hand with the life of the peasants. Siddhartha gazed at the children with arms and legs as thin as matchsticks and bellies swollen from worms and malnutrition. He saw the handicapped and infirm forced to beg in the streets, and the scenes robbed him of any happiness. He saw people caught in inescapable situations. In addition to poverty and disease, they were oppressed by the higher classes, and there was no one to whom they could complain. The capital was too distant, and even if they went there, who would help them? He knew that even a king had no power to change the situation. So we can understand start to understand that Siddhartha didn't see a possibility of making his people happy, even in being a king. Siddhartha had long understood the inner workings of the royal court. Every official was intent on protecting and fortifying his own power and not on alleviating the suffering of those in need. He had seen the powerful plot against each other, and he felt nothing but revulsion for politics. He knew that even his own father's authority was fragile and restricted. A king did not possess true freedom, but was imprisoned by his position. His father was aware of many officials' greed and corruption, but was forced to rely on the same individuals to maintain the stability of his reign. Siddhartha realized that if he stood in his father's place, he would have to do the same. He understood that only when people overcame greed and envy in their own hearts would the conditions change. And so his desire to seek a path of spiritual liberation was reignited. Yashodhara was bright and intuitive. She understood Siddhartha's longings, and she had faith that if Siddhartha resolved to find the path of liberation, he would succeed. But she was also quite practical. Such a search could last months, even years, and in the meantime, sufferings would continue to daily unfold around them. And so she believed it was important to respond right in the present moment. She discussed with Siddhartha ways to ease the suffering of the poorest members of society. She had been doing work like that for several years, and her efforts eased some of the people's misery and brought some measure of peace and happiness to her own heart as well. She believed that with Siddhartha's loving support, she could continue with such work for a long time. From Kapilavatthu came pouring all manners of goods and servants to provide for the couple's needs. Siddhartha and Yashodhara sent home most of the servants, retaining only a few to assist them with the gardens, cooking, and housekeeping. And, of course, they retained the services of Channa, the royal charioteer. Yashodhara organized their daily life as simply as possible. She personally entered the kitchen to direct the cooking of simple meals pleasing to Siddhartha, and she cared for his garments with her own hands. She sought Siddhartha's guidance concerning the relief project she intended to continue, and when they returned to the capital,
Siddhartha understood her need to engage in social action, but he never failed to express his support. Because of this, Yashodhara placed even deeper trust in her husband. So now we see the element of faith and trust. But although Siddhartha understood the value of his wife's work, he felt that her path alone could not bring true peace. Some people were entrapped not only by illness and unjust social conditions, but by the sorrows and passions they themselves created in their own hearts and minds. And if in time Yashodhara fell victim to fear, anger, bitterness, or disappointment, where would she find the energy needed to continue her work? Siddhartha had himself experienced suspicion, frustration, and pain when he saw how things worked in the palace and in society. He knew that the attainment of inner peace would be the only basis for true social work. But he did not confide these thoughts to Yashodhara, because he feared that they would only cause her more uncertainty and worry. When the couple returned to the winter palace, they entertained a constant stream of guests. Yashodhara welcomed family members and friends with great warmth and respect, but she was most attentive when Siddhartha spoke with them about philosophy and religion, and in their relations to politics and society. Even while going back and forth to direct the servants, Yashodhara never missed a word of these conversations. She had hoped to discover among her friends some who might like to join her work for the poor, but few expressed interest in such pursuits. Most were more interested in feasting and having a good time, yet Siddhartha and Yashodhara patiently received them all. So through this excerpt from Old Path White Clouds, we can see that the prince and the princess, they understood each other very, very deeply. And also they shared the same interests in making society a better place, doing things to change the world. Whereas we see that Siddhartha has more of a deep and a long-term solution, but Yashodhara is very concerned with figuring out things in the present. So we can see that they were perfect for each other, I'm sure. And when the Buddha left his family in order to seek the path, it must have been, when the prince left the family, it must have been very heart-wrenching for him as well to leave behind his wonderful family. Later on, when the Buddha became a hermit, when he became a wandering monk, it's said that when Yashodhara first heard the news that Siddhartha was a wandering hermit, and he renounced all of his precious jewels, Yashodhara also took off all of her precious jewels. She never wore any of the jewelry that was given to her in the palace. When he heard that he slept on the ground, she also slept on the ground. When he heard that he ate once a day, she also ate only one meal a day. And when she heard that her husband was now wearing just a simple garment, a very coarse yellow robe, she also wore a simple, coarse yellow robe. So in a way, although Siddhartha and Yashodhara were far away, they were very, very close to each other. Through every action, through everything that through every experience that they had, they still were able to experience it together, even though they were very far away. And this is true love. And after the Buddha realized awakening and enlightenment, he also shared on a couple of occasions that Yashodhara had not only been his wonderful companion, faithful companion in this life, but many lives before as well. So when we have the opportunity to learn the teachings of the Buddha, if we can apply to our daily lives and bring it into our relationships, this will help to improve our happiness, our quality of life. The Buddha recognized, that not everyone was ready or even suited for a life centered on intensive spiritual practice. Most people were contented with their household life. Most people wanted to run a business, to take part in social activities, to have a good time, to be happy in life, not to be a monk. Unless we choose to be a monk, unless we choose the path of liberation and renunciation, is a different story. But the Buddha also taught teachings for the lay community, many, many teachings for the lay people. We can't just tell people who are already married, right? To oh yes, you should leave your family and renounce all of your worldly riches and everyone become monks. We can't do that. But the Buddha understood very, very deeply that we can also be happy wherever we are. And some people the conditions for them to enter the intentional spiritual practice is not yet there or ripened. So the Buddha also taught lay people how to be happy, because the Buddha himself had understood and he went through this before. So thank you so much, my dear friends, for your listening. Happy Father's Day, and hopefully we go home today and we tell our Father that we love him. We give our Father a very big hug, and we also understand the fact that in order for us to, if we are parents, then we understand that in our relationships together, in the household, whatever we do, whatever we say, the way that we bring ourselves about will impact our children. And children, vice versa. Sometimes our parents will be inspired by the things that we do. It's very difficult for us to teach our parents things because our parents have brought us into this life. But what we can do is to put those things into action. And that is the only way that we can inspire, that we can help our parents, to bring them closer to the spiritual path, to bring them closer to the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. So I have a lot prepared, but there's not enough time. Maybe just to go over very, very quickly. So the Buddha taught 4 virtues of compatibility. There was a husband and wife named Nakulapita and Nakulamata, and they lived very, very happily together. One day when they saw the Buddha, they said, Blessed One, from when my wife had entered the household up to this very point, she has only brought happiness to my family. And for his wife also says the same. When I had my husband up to this very point, he had only brought happiness to me and my family. And we wish to continue to see each other in the future for many, many lives to come. And the Buddha said, okay. He said, okay, I'll teach you a teaching that you can, so that you can continue to see each other and to support each other, to become Dharma friends on the path in future lives. This is found in the Anguttara Nikaya. First is self-discipline. First is faith. Second is self-discipline. Third is self-sacrifice. And the fourth is wisdom. So in order for the couples to be happy, they have to have the same amount, or roughly the same, be at the same level of faith. Faith in themselves, faith in the Dharma. Self-discipline, so their moral, their standards of morals and manners and etiquette have to also be around the same point. They should both have the same attitude of self-sacrifice, selflessly devoting them not only to each other, but also to their friends and family. And in the end, they have to have pairing wisdom. So thank you so much once again for your listening. And I know it was a lot, but hopefully next time we can continue to share more on this topic. Thank you so much, and I wish everyone a happy Father's Day. Chúng con kính cảm ơn quý thầy, quý sư cô, quý bác, quý cô cùng toàn thể đại chúng. Bây giờ chúng ta sẽ cử hành nghi thức tiến linh. Các vị, những gia đình nào hôm nay chúng ta có cúng cho người thân nhân của mình thì mình sẽ chút xíu nữa, sau khi mình xả chân, đại chúng xả chân, please release your legs, massage your legs. Sau khi mình xả chân, mình đứng dậy, mình chắp tay, mình nghe tiếng Khánh, đứng dậy mình chắp tay, mình sẽ xá nhau và sau đó xá Đức Phật, sau đó mình sẽ qua bàn thờ linh và mình sẽ tiến linh. So dear friends, if you have come here to commemorate your loved one, to make a food offering to them, then in a moment here, when we hear the sound of the small bell, we will stand up, join our palms, and bow to each other, turn to the Buddha, bow to the Buddha, and make our way over to the altar over there. So you
join our palms and just bow to each other and to the Buddha. And please bring with your